We have to find a way to talk and have dialogue and be tolerant between other views.
You have to have open dialogue, and that's where free speech is so important.
Consent's a very important thing, and today in the Me Too movement, it's been very important because I think it's really opened up a lot of eyes.
I think we should get away from this hookup culture and get back to relationships, because when you have a relationship, you have that communication, you have that connection.
If you committed sexual assault, it doesn't matter when it was, you should be held accountable for that. However, we have to make sure that we actually make sure they committed sexual assault, and we have to make sure that all allegations are verified.
They'll put in these programs thinking that it'll help everyone, but what they forget is that the pathway to hell is paved with good intentions.
And I think that's what this whole movement is all about anyways, is trying to be open to ideas.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Liberty Talks podcast. This is Matt Travis here with John Douglas. And today we're going to be talking about probably just one topic, because there's a lot to go over here. The Green New Deal. There's a lot of controversy this past week, or these past few days actually, with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that's hard to say, with her Green New Deal. We're mostly going to be focusing on the frequently asked questions document, which Ocasio said was her first draft, which essentially means this is her dream, what she would like to see happen. But anyway, I'll let John Douglas take it from here. We're gonna go through the document and look at each individual part of it and just kind of analyze what all of this means. But you have it pulled up in front of you, right?
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
Yeah, so the Green New Deal is the greatest document ever invented in the history of mankind. If you want to laugh, just keep on laughing your ass off.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of I wouldn't even say 2-year-old. Like, there's babies who aren't even been born, who hasn't been born yet. You can write a better bill than this, a better draft. And so we're going to be going over it line by line and discussing how stupid it is and having lots of great laughs and talk about farting cows and killing them. So let's just jump right in.
Sweet.
So the first thing it says is overview. We will begin work immediately on Green New Deal bills to put the nuts and bolts on the plan described in the resolution. Important to say, so someone else can't claim this mantle. Okay, so this is the first thing it says in the draft, and this is Ocasio-Cortez saying, this is mine, and no one else can claim it. So
this is mine. You can't have it. Like, that's exactly.
Exactly. So she's a capitalist with her bill, just not with everyone else's money.
Oh God, I don't think I'll be able to get through this. All right, continue on.
All right, so this is a massive transformation of our society with clear goals and a timeline. Spoiler alert, there is no timeline. Actually, I should say there is a timeline. There is no explanation for how we actually achieve that timeline. So,
Yeah.
I should say so. So, the Green New Deal resolution, a 10-year plan to mobilize every aspect of American society at a scale not seen since World War II to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions and create economic prosperity for all. I want to stop there. Okay, the New Deal in the 1930s, I think 1937, when it was passed, it did not actually end the Great Depression. It actually extended the Great Depression, because it turns out whenever the government pays people to dig a hole and then fill it back up, you're not actually you're not creating any wealth there. You're not creating any production. And that's essentially what the New Deal did. And what it also did was it basically guaranteed everyone lots of jobs, did all this high in the pie stuff, created Social Security, and it basically made it impossible to get out of and create a government dependence on certain communities, especially the Black communities, which they're still dependent on today.
Yeah,
it was one of the worst things ever created.
Yeah, and evidence of that would be the Depression in the early 1920s. I think it was 1920, 21. That only lasted months, if I remember right. I don't think it lasted a full year.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was President McKinley who was president. No. I might have been McKinley. The hard part is 6 people ran for presidency in 1920, and all 6 of them would become president at some point. So it's hard to remember which one actually won. But yeah, the 1920 was clearly dominated by Republicans who were very libertarian.
1920, was it? United States presidential election. Oh my goodness, there was a lot of people running. I don't know. Continue on. Let's not waste time on it.
Yeah. So yeah. This is 6 of the people who ran would end up becoming presidents eventually.
Yeah.
Or were already president beforehand. In the 1920s, is run very libertarian, which is why the 1920s depression ended very quickly, and is why the 1920s called the Roaring 20s, because it was huge economic growth all the way until 1929 when the stock market crashed. And then you have Franklin D. Roosevelt comes in, does the Green New Deal. It actually extends the Great Depression by 10 years. And so Democrats always talk about World War II being, look, we got out of the Great Depression because of World War II and because of the Green New Deal, which isn't entirely true. I mean, if Ocasio-Cortez wants to basically put in a huge chunk of all the men in America into like forced labor, or just make them join the military and go fight in a war, or
bad president.
Or better yet, what actually got us out of the Great Depression, destroy every single economy and industrialized nation on Earth and become the only one left. If she wants to do that, then maybe it'll work. That's not in her bill.
Yeah.
But getting back to it, the bill will move America to 100% clean and renewable energy, create millions of family-supporting wage union jobs, ensure a just transition for all communities and workers to ensure economic security for people and communities that have historically relied on fossil fuel industries, and ensure justice and equity for frontline communities by prioritizing investment, training, climate, and community resiliency, economic and environmental benefits in these communities, build on FDR's second Bill of Rights by guaranteeing, which I'll get to that, but yeah, let's go over that. So she wants to move America to 100% clean and renewable energy, create millions of wage-supporting union jobs, and ensure a just transition for workers and communities that have historically relied on fossil fuel industries. Why won't that work, Matt?
Well, there's a number of reasons why that wouldn't work, but mostly, so ensure justice and equity of frontline communities and prioritize investment, training, climate. It mainly wouldn't work because she's talking about government solutions. They just suck at everything in general. But I mean, also what I thought was interesting is we kind of skipped over it. Create millions of families supporting wage and union jobs. Like, this is, again, just shows that they're beholden to the unions in a large part, and that they would throw that in there so they're doing this intersectionality thing, and that's one of the things they do. They throw the union jobs in there because that's a group of people whom they can court into the Democrat Party, right? And not just court, but that's a group
of course
who generally vote, not necessarily the workers in the union, but the people who run the union.
Yeah, and it creates a corrupt bargain where the Democrats give money to the unions, and the money, unions in turn give tons of money to the Democrats. And what's worse about all of this is that these would be public sector unions, which means that the people that's in these unions would not be actually bargaining with a boss or a manager, but be bargaining with the American people. And the problem with that is the American people have no bargaining power in this, and so therefore they would be paying their tax dollars to people who have complete 100% bargaining power over them. And that would be tyrannous. And actually, I think that's why we need right-to-work laws in this country, mainly a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, I would say to that point, I mean, obviously this would be horrible for the economy. I think most liberals would look at this and say this would be horrible for the economy. You can't create basically massive welfare by creating just government jobs, like you said, digging a hole that just to fill it back up, or just so somebody can have a job and not have a downturn in the economy. But more importantly to me is it's immoral. It's immoral to use taxpayer money, to take money from people involuntarily at the threat of government guns, and then just so that you can create jobs.
Exactly.
Rather than letting free market, rather than letting voluntary transactions take place.
You're absolutely right. Going on with it, so build FDR's second Bill of Rights by guaranteeing a job with the family-sustaining wage, family and medical leave, vacations, and retirement security, high-quality education, including higher education and trade schools, clean air and water to access to nature, healthy food, high-quality health care, safe, affordable, adequate housing, economic environment free of monopolies, economic security for all who are unwilling, this is the best part, unwilling or unable to work. Oh my God.
This is the problem with it. It's so stupid that it's actually hard to criticize, because I just want to go like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Like, it's so obvious that there's basically, you can refute this entire thing in two ways. Number one, the unwilling to work is such an important part of this that you can't pass it up, because it sets the stage for all that other stuff she mentioned, the high quality healthcare, safe, affordable, adequate housing, because you're saying that all that stuff, you get it no matter what.
Yeah.
If you're going to include that unwilling to work, it's all that you get no matter what. So you can debunk this entire thing with two statements. Number one, you have incentivized people to not do anything.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Why would I do this podcast if I can get money for not working?
Yeah. So you've incentivized people to not do anything. And even if you haven't incentivized people to not do anything, you are having to steal from somebody in order to make all this happen.
Here's my next favorite part. If everyone's unwilling to work, how are you going to give them access to high quality education, a job with family sustaining wage? If they're unwilling to work, how are you going to give them healthy food, high quality health care, safe, affordable, adequate housing? If they're not going to work, how are you going to give them that? Like, who are you going to tax after that?
Yeah.
And we already know she said it's immoral for a country to allow billionaires. So where's she going to get her money from?
Yeah.
But let's keep going. So there is no time to waste. IPCC reports that global emissions must be cut by 40 to 60% by 2030. U.S. is 20% of total emissions. We must get to zero by 2030 and lead the world in a global Green New Deal. Okay, that's just a lie. The IPCC report did not say that. Okay, what the IPCC report actually said was that there's nothing. Yeah, the IPCC report said that there is nothing that countries like the United States and Europe could do, not a single thing, even if they went to net zero emissions, that they could do to stop global warming.
Yeah.
Because the majority of emissions comes from developing countries like China and India. If we went to net zero emissions right now, it would not even put a dent in it. I think it would stop the temperature from rising by 0.002%.
Yeah, and not only that, but we're still gonna get things from somewhere. So if they were to implement this and they were able to reduce it by 40-60%, well, that means we're gonna be producing a lot less stuff because we can't make it for as cheap. We're not as efficient and we're not as effective at doing things anymore. So that means we're going to be buying more stuff from places like China, who will just be then upping their emissions. So everything that we decrease will just be at least as much. At least as much emissions will be increased when it comes to places like China.
Right. And it should be said that the United States has decreased its emissions more than any other country in the world.
Yeah. And if you do that,
yeah, go ahead.
If you do that, generally just because the free market is coming up with ideas that work better, then it's fine, because we're coming up with ideas that work better. There's no, like, some of this stuff is so stupid. I can't explain it, but just in plain words, like if these technologies worked, we would be using them. Like, and that's all I have to say about it.
Right.
Like, if they worked better, we would be using them.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And not even if they were cheaper too. And if they worked, it would actually make them cheaper.
Yeah.
But going on with this is one of my favorite parts. Americans love a challenge. This is our moonshot. Hey Matt, you're an American, right?
Yes.
I have a challenge for you. Go drive in your car at 20 miles an hour, open the door and jump out. I challenge you.
Yeah, that's basically equivalent to what this is.
Yeah.
What? Except for it might be 70 miles an hour, because this, if you implemented this, it would literally just crash the entire economy. The amount of, and I don't know, maybe she gets into this further down, but the amount of things that you would have to, the amount of updates you would have to do on buildings and in infrastructure in order to do these things would cost so much money that it would be impossible to absorb the cost.
Yeah.
It would, and they want to do it in like 10 years. I can't even imagine, like, I can't even think, I haven't looked this up, but I can't even imagine like how much this would cost. You're literally talking about having to revamp almost every single building in the entire country.
There was
Whenever you
a
take into account all the stuff in here.
well, she actually talks about revamping every single building in the entire country. But there was a economic group that actually calculated her costs, and they said that it was actually not possible to calculate, but at a minimum, it would cost $60 trillion.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I couldn't even come close to that number. I was thinking in my head like 20, 30 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
Just if I had to randomly guess,
Mm-hmm.
20.
So
I'm not surprised by 60 trillion. That's
crazy. Don't forget, we have a national debt, 22 trillion now as of yesterday.
Yeah.
But going back into it, when JFK said we'd go to by the end of the decade, I think she forgot to put the moon in there. When JFK said we'd go to the moon by the end of the decade, people said impossible. If Eisenhower wanted to build the interstate highway system today, people would have asked how he paid for it. When FDR called on America to build 185,000 planes to fight World War II, every business leader, CEO, and general laughed at him. What? we're at war. Guys, we need more planes. At the time, the U.S. had produced 3,000 planes in the last year. So,
well, also she's talking about when she compares these things, she's completely ignoring that these weren't actually pie in the sky ideas. Like there were scientists, there were rocket scientists behind the scenes saying, here goes what we can do, and this is how we think we can make this happen, and this is the time frame in which we think we can make it happen, and this is how much we think it'll cost. Like, it wasn't going to the moon. Whenever you think about it nowadays, like, it sounds like the late 60s is a long time ago, and it kind of was, 50 years ago, but
yeah,
but it wasn't as a pie in the sky idea as people make it out to be now.
and the idea that, like, without the government, there would never be an interstate highway system without the federal government. That's just asinine. The states and private companies would have built them. But getting back to the stupidity, this is a massive investment in our economy and society, not expenditure. No, it's not an investment because there's no return on it. If you're giving people free blame, if you're giving people free stuff, that is an expenditure. There is absolutely no return at all.
It's an investment for the foreign government that comes and takes over our country whenever our economy collapses.
Exactly.
And they get here and, hey, look, there's a bunch of crap. Cool. We got free crap.
We invested 40 to 50% of GDP into our economy during World War II and created the greatest middle class the U.S. has ever seen. I already explained why that's not true. The interstate highway system returned more than $6 economic productivity for every $1 its cost. This is massively expanding existing and building new industries at a rapid pace, growing our economy.
Do you know what she's basing that $6 in economic productivity for every $1 in cost? Because I imagine there's a lot of things that account for that, like inflation and the amount of crap you can buy with $1 today that you could buy back then. Like, you may have been able to live on a lot less money, but now it's like I'm not wealthy. I have a laptop sitting in front of me that's probably the equivalent to a laptop that Bill Gates has. I have a phone that's equivalent to a phone that Bill Gates has. Like, I have a car that's equivalent, well, maybe not equivalent to Bill Gates, but you get my point. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like,
no, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, to assume that an investment back then of six, even if they're accounting for inflation, you still have to account for how things have changed that don't have as much to do with the government having invested in roads.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, continue on.
This is an amazing part. The Green New Deal has momentum. 92% of Democrats and 64% of Republicans support the Green New Deal. Spoiler alert, they don't. Democrats run away screaming if any reporter asks them any question about the Green New Deal. Republicans hate it because they hate top-down government control. And even college students, Cabot Phillips from Campus Reform actually made a video where he's asking college students about the Green New Deal, and they all said they loved it. Then he told them its contents, then suddenly they all hated it. It's amazing. So that's just completely wrong.
Yeah, it depends what question you're asking.
Yeah.
If you're asking people that have never heard of it if they like the Green New Deal, people are stupid. Oh yeah,
Exactly.
Green New Deal sounds great. Go ahead and pass some legislation that's anything similar to this, and 5 years down the line, people are going to be losing their minds.
Exactly. Nearly every major Democratic presidential contender said they will back the Green New Deal, including Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Jeff McCurley, Julian Castro, Kirsten Gillibrand, Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, and Jay Inslee. Yep. And it's a big mistake. But I'm so glad that they actually endorsed it.
You know what this reminds me of? The 92%. 92% Democrats probably actually support it in word, like to a certain extent. Like whenever they can, on their own terms, put out a statement. But it's like you said. Whenever a Democrat has their policy repeated back to them, whenever a Republican has their policy repeated back to them, they go, "Yeah, that's what we proposed." But when a Democrat has their policy repeated back to them, then they get pissed off. It's the same thing here. Like they'll support it until they're questioned on it, and then they're like, "No, that's ridiculous. That's not what I support."
Exactly, because they know it's so radical. The American people would just kill over if this happened. I mean, it's going to cost them. I think at the end it will cost them. Lastly, 45 House reps, 330 plus groups back the original resolution for a select committee, or 300 local and state politicians have called for a federal Green New Deal. New resolution is 20 co-sponsors, about 30 groups. Numbers will change by Thursday. Yeah, a lot of that's not true. But let's try to get through the rest of this. Here's the FAQ section. Now this is going to be so funny. Why 100% clean and renewable and not just 100% renewable? Are you saying we won't transition off fossil fuels? Yes, we are calling for a full transition off fossil fuels and zero greenhouse gases. Anyone who has read the resolution sees that we spell this out through a plan that calls for eliminating greenhouse gas emissions from every sector of the economy. Simply banning fossil fuels immediately won't build the new economy to replace it. This is the plan to build that new economy and spells out how to do it technically. We'll do this through a huge mobilization to create the renewable energy economy as fast as possible. We set a goal to get it to net zero rather than zero emissions in 10 years because we aren't sure that we'll be able to fully get rid of farting cows and airplanes that fast. But we think we can ramp up renewable manufacturing and power production, retrofit every building in America, build a smart grid, overhaul transportation and agriculture, plant lots of trees, and restore our ecosystem to get to net zero. Okay, that's probably one of the most hilarious things ever written and sent to Congress. Farting cows. Okay, I just want to say about farting cows. I hope they go along with killing farting cows because then the Republicans get a whole new base in PETA.
Oh my goodness.
I'm glad PETA will be joining Republicans now. Or maybe not. PETA's pretty crazy.
No,
but here's the thing. You can't have it both ways. And you can't say that you're going to get to net zero emissions but at the same time not just completely destroy the fossil fuel industry because there's people that have jobs on it. But she wants it both ways, and she gives no solutions at all for how she would get there.
Yeah.
Except, by planting trees and killing farting cows.
This is absurd.
It's absolutely absurd. You're right.
This is making me crazy. I can't even
So next question. Is nuclear a part of this? A Green New Deal is a massive investment in renewable energy production that would not include creating new nuclear plants. Okay, nuclear energy is the cleanest cleanest energy there is, and also one of the most efficient energy types. Nuclear should be the way of the future, but Democrats hate nuclear. Like, is there anything they don't hate except solar panels and wind turbines?
Yeah, and then you still have to. I don't understand how this is supposed to work. How are you supposed to make these solar panels and wind turbines and things without causing more pollution, making them? And none of this doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. Then next question.
I'm sorry, I can't critique this. This is just stupid. It's so fucking dumb that I can't. How are you going to get to net zero in 10 years? You're going to have to up it by doing all this infrastructure first. So it's not going to happen in 10 years if you're trying to do it in 10 years. You're going to up it an insane amount, the pollution in the greenhouse gas emissions. What, like, if it's that bad for the freaking for the environment, then you're going to fuck the environment before we ever get a chance to get to where you have net zero emissions. Jesus.
It gets even better though. Does this include a carbon tax? Does this include a cap and trade? Short answer for both of them, no, it doesn't. Why? Because then people will go out of business. So the only way that Europe funds its green energy programs is through carbon tax and cap and trade. And Ocasio-Cortez is saying no to it because people will go out of business. So she has no way to pay for any of this stuff. Does a G&D ban all new fossil fuel infrastructure or nuclear power plants? The Green New Deal makes new fossil fuel infrastructure and nuclear plants unnecessary. This is a massive mobilization of all resources to renewable energy. So no power plants, no nuclear power plants, because nuclear is very bad, even though it's the cleanest energy there is. I'm going to skip.
But there was that one time. There was that one time in Fukushima that everything died.
Yeah, that's true. Because they got hit by tsunami.
Oh,
why do we need a sweeping Green New Deal investment program? Why can't we just rely on regulations and taxes in the private sector to invest alone, such as a carbon tax or a ban on fossil fuels? Now, she writes a lot here, so I'm just going to summarize it. The level of investment required is massive. No shit. Even if every billionaire and company came together and were willing to pour all the resources at their disposal into this investment, the aggregate value of the investments they could make would not be sufficient.
This seems like that sounds like the argument that we make for why you can't just tax the rich to pay for everything.
Right, except she's making this argument.
So she recognizes that, but is proposing a plan that... Oh.
Also, private companies are wary of making massive investments in unproven research and technologies. Yeah. Because the government, however, has the time horizon to be able to patiently make investments in new tech and R&D without necessarily having a commercial outcome or application in mind at this time the investment is made. So basically, she's making conservative arguments now. And sort of. No, sort of. Not all of them are. But basically, it's asked, well, why can't
she's answering the objections by saying, yes, all the objections are true. That's what well, we're going to try it anyway.
But Americans love a challenge.
Yeah.
All right, and now getting to the ending here, resolution summary. Created in constellation in multiple groups or environmental community, environmental justice community, and labor community, 5 goals in 10 years, net zero greenhouse gas emissions through a fair and just transition for all communities and workers, create millions of highway jobs, ensure prosperity and economic security for all, invest in infrastructure and industry to sustainably meet the challenges of the 21st century, clean air and water, climate and community resilience, healthy food, access to nature, and sustainable environment for all. So yeah, we already heard all that stuff. Basically just an overview. Okay. Now she's getting into some more stupid stuff though. National mobilization of our economy through 14 infrastructure and industrial projects. Every project strives to remove greenhouse gas emissions and pollution from every sector of our economy. Build infrastructure to create resiliency against climate change related disasters. Repair and upgrade U.S. infrastructure. ASCE estimates that is 4.6 trillion at a minimum. Actually, it's more about 12 trillion. Meet 100% of power demand through clean and renewable energy sources, build energy efficient distributed smart grids, and ensure affordable access to electricity. Upgrade, here it is, here's my favorite. Upgrade or replace every building in the U.S. for state-of-the-art energy efficiency. So she wants to take away your house now because your house is going to destroy the world.
Well, yeah, that's where the morality argument comes into play again.
Mm-hmm.
This is the problem with these people. Oh my God. All right, they don't play things out. They don't go, all right, let's see how this is going to work. So for instance, on the upgrading every building, forcing you to upgrade your house or whatever. Let's play this out. Person likes how their house is. You come in and say, you have to do this and this to your house. The federal government, not like a local municipality that says, hey, if you don't do this, it's going to fuck up your neighbor's yard, so you have to do it, right?
Mhm.
This, or it's going to, flood your neighbor's house or something. So we need you to do this, right? But the federal government, who doesn't, like, they don't have any idea what's going on in your little community, right? And
Right,
not to
of
mention, this
course.
is going to affect poor communities far, far worse. It's going to affect African American communities far, far worse with all the social justice crap they talk about in here. But
Mhm.
so it's the federal government saying you need to do this. Well, what if you go, I like my house how it is? Eventually, some point down the line, they come with guns and take you to jail.
You're absolutely right. This is the problem with government coercion and socialism. At some point, you do become a slave to the government. You do become someone who is engaged in enforced servitude because the government cannot have you saying no.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right with that.
So
And,
so then the thing is that they don't care, right? They're fine with sticking people in prison for stupid things like not having solar panels on your house and instead, using fossil fuels in some way or another. They're fine with people going to prison for that, even though they talk about overpopulated prisons all the time, because that's what this amounts to. At some point down the line, everyone's going to be breaking the law in some way.
yeah,
So
definitely.
you're opening up for a bunch of people to go to prison. So they're fine with that, but this is.
But don't worry. In the end, it will be like Venezuela, where we're all equally poor, but we'll have no income inequality anymore. All we will have is a redistribution of misery. So finishing this off, massively expanding clean manufacturing and remove pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from manufacturing. Work with farmers and ranchers to create a sustainable pollution and greenhouse gas-free food system that ensures universal access to healthy food and expands independently family farming. Total overhaul of transportation by massively expanding electrical vehicle manufacturing. Build charging stations everywhere. Build out high-speed rail at a scale where air travel stops becoming necessary. So now we got to get rid of planes. Create affordable public transit available to all.
Isn't that an interesting little like they just admit, like they're talking about all these, we have to dream big, but then at some point they go, yeah, we're probably not going to figure out a way to get planes in the air without like all of a sudden the dreaming stops. It's like, we're just gonna have to get rid of train. We're just gonna have to use electric trains. We can't fly anymore.
I love how the Democratic politicians from Hawaii are most pissed off about that. And with goal to replace every combustion engine vehicle. So that means pretty much every single vehicle in the United States, because every single vehicle has a combustion-based system where, if you don't know, V8, V6 is how many pistons you have. And the way that gasoline works is that it goes to piston and a combustion happens, and that makes the car go. So that would get rid of every single car in the United States, essentially. And now your car is illegal. Congratulations.
And now everybody who's poor can't afford to go anywhere.
Yep, exactly.
Which they have their massive government programs they're talking about implementing to take care of them, but then it comes back to, again, who's going to pay for the massive government programs? How long will it take before the economy collapses because of them?
It's going to be every single person. This is not just the rich. Every single person in the U.S. will pay for this.
Yeah, this is what a lot of people don't get. So if you look at like Denmark, for instance, people think that like, they have socialist policies and the rich pay for it. No. Those people pay, like, your average dude pays like 60% in taxes.
Exactly. And we would have to be paid more for this.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty sure if you confiscated every single American in the country's wealth, you still couldn't pay for it.
No, yeah. No doubt.
But continuing on, mitigate long-term health effects of climate change and pollution, remove greenhouse gases from our atmosphere and pollution through afforestation, preservation, other methods of restoring our natural ecosystems. By the way, just a little side note here. If you went to net zero, like I said earlier, you would not at all help stop global warming. And when it says restoring our natural ecosystems and preserving our, like the next one is restore our damaged, threatened ecosystems. I got a question for you, Matt. Do you know what do you know what company, like what groups have contributed more to rebuilding forest and ecosystems throughout the United States more than anyone else?
I'm gonna guess companies that deal in fossil fuels.
No, it's the logging companies.
Logging companies. Oh yeah, well of course. That should have been an easy one because they need trees.
hmm Yeah, the logging
You
companies,
have
I
to
think,
plant trees to sell trees.
exactly. I think they plant 10 trees for every one that they cut down. So that they've actually, this is a really neat story. The logging companies have actually remade a lot of the forest that got torn down hundreds of years ago.
And it used to be, when you're talking about forest fires and stuff like that, it used to be that those things got burned out anyway.
hmm
We put them out over years. We put them out more and more often, to the point to where, and then people started building in areas because we could put them out until they got too thick, and then they started burning
Right.
more than we could handle. Which leaves like California where it is right now, where every other year they have a massive fire that, at least every other year, they have a massive fire that takes out people's houses.
Exactly. There's only 15 things less. 15
Only.
bullet points.
Only 15.
So
This is torture for me. I'm like,
So social and economic justice and security through 15 requirements. Massive federal investments and assistance to organizations and businesses participating in the Green New Deal and ensuring the public gets a return on that investment. Ensuring the environmental and social cost of emissions are taken into account. Provide job training and education to all. Invest in R&D of clean, new, and renewable energy technologies. Doing direct investments in frontline and deindustrialized communities that would otherwise be hurt by the transition to prioritize economic benefits there. Every single community will be hurt
every single
by this. Use democratic and participatory processes led by frontline and vulnerable communities to implement G&D projects locally. Ensure that all G&D jobs are union jobs that pay prevailing wages and hire local. Guarantee a job with family-sustaining wages. She actually doesn't want them to hire local because she just got rid of Amazon from hiring in New York in her district, and she's celebrating it. But anyways, protect the right of all workers to unionize and organize. Strengthen and enforce labor, workplace health and safety, anti-discrimination, and wage and hour standards. And act and enforce trade rules to stop the transfer of jobs and pollution overseas and grow domestic manufacturing. It won't happen. If you do all this, every single company, business, or rich person will leave the country. Every single one. Ensure public lands, waters, and oceans are protected and eminent domain is not abused. Eminent domain will be abused. I mean, there's no other way around it. It has to be abused for this to happen.
Yeah, it's already abused. It's abused on a local level.
Yeah.
Much less with this massive government intervention into the economy.
I like this one. Obtain free, prior, and informed consent of indigenous peoples. So can we just go ask the Cherokee Nation to say no to this? Like, if the Cherokee Nation say no to the Green New Deal, does it just go down in flames then?
What's funny is they probably would say no to this.
I think they would.
This might be a step too far for them.
I have a lot of family members who's actually part of the Cherokee Nation, and I know they do not like this. Ensure an economic environment free of monopoly and unfair competition, except besides the government, because the government would end all competition. Provide high quality health care, housing, economic security, and clean air, clean water, healthy food, and nature to all. End. Whew. Okay, so
what's wrong with you, man? You were willing to read that entire thing.
Well, the things I do.
It's one of.
Well, with that took a long time. I can barely speak now, and I can barely think. For every word I read, I lost 100 brain cells. So.
Oh man! What I found fascinating about this is how she tried to backpedal, like that tweet we were reading earlier. There are multiple Dr. Genie resolutions, yada yada yada. There's also a draft version that got uploaded and taken down. Like it. What do you mean? What is she trying to say there? That like, well, that's not what we really think.
Yeah.
That thing we put up, we just put it up because we just felt like putting it up. We don't really. And then if you look at the actual bill, like it's not. Let me open it up here.
Yeah, I mean, she straight up lied about it. She took it down because everyone kept laughing at it. So stupid. She said it was actually a draft, though we know it wasn't because she sent this out to every major media outlet. And also the way we also know it's not a draft is that she still hasn't uploaded the real draft. I would imagine after you took it down, you'd uploaded the real draft like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It's been a week. She still hasn't done it.
And also, like the draft, like it's a draft. She's trying to like dismiss it as a draft. Like a draft is just, here's, in this situation, a draft would be, here's ideally what I would like to happen. And then from there, you have to go talk to some people that tell you how unrealistic some of these things are, and then you kind of dwindle it down. But it's the first thing you present, the draft, is what you actually want. That's the outcome you want. So to pretend like people, it's unreasonable for people to be like, this is kind of insane. Maybe we shouldn't support these types of things. Oh no, we're not really supporting that. It's just a draft.
Yeah, so this is the Democratic Party. Now, don't forget, every major Democratic presidential candidate. Sorry, I keep doing that. It's we had technical difficulties earlier, and my lighting's part of it. But yeah, every single presidential nominee endorsed this bill. Pretty much all of them. So this is the Democratic Party. Now, they're absolutely crazy. They're out of your minds. And they want to come for every aspect of your life. They want your house now. They want your cars. They want your guns. That this is what we have now. And with that, I need to go bang my head on the wall a few times. I have to recoat back in the real world. So I think this is a good spot. So Matt, thanks for going over the Green New Deal with me.
You're not welcome.
Well, I'm John Douglas. That's Matt Travis. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back here next week.
Have a good one.
And that was it tonight. Our podcast tonight was brought to you by our music contributor, Franco Luciano. I also want to let everybody know that you can find Liberty Talks Podcast now on Apple Podcast, on Google, and Spotify. Yes, we've expanded here at Liberty Talks, where you can find our podcast at most of the mainstream podcast hosts. So please check it out, spread the word, and continue listening to Liberty Talks Podcast every single week.